In this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the books and the show.
Hey, I'm Glenn the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation, the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one format to another. This week, we're continuing on with our journey through the Expanse. This is Season 3, Episode 10, Dandelion Sky, probably my favorite title of the entire series. Tonight, we've got a special guest from Down Under. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm alive, gloriously alive.
We've got the communications link with you working now. That's good to have you on. Glad you're alive. Glad to see you. Mitch, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Looking forward to tonight's discussion.
And Max, thank you as always for running the show. So, Max, what can you tell us about this episode?
Oh, stuff happens. A lot of stuff.
A lot.
Holden is up to some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Marines are up to some stuff too. Marines cause a lot of people a lot of misery.
I have a
Miller,
quick
he
question.
just, doors and corners, man.
Yeah, and I have a quick question. The name of the episode is Dandelion Sky. Do any of you know where that came from?
The very last shot of the episode, it's what it looks like from inside the ring space when all the other rings open up. It was a name that they actually talk about it in this book. They mentioned.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Ben.
No, it's so much made me think of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Dandelion Sky, like it's got the D and the S, like it just made me think of the kaleidoscope. It made like I love the title name, as you said, and yeah, I thought it was a great title.
At that point where it comes in that point where they're talking on the Rossi on what to call it, and they decided on the slow zone, and the other name that somebody had, I think Alex had brought it up, was Dandelion Sky, because it's like standing inside the head of a dandelion that's about to spring, its little floaters, seeds off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost the title of this book, but
that's right. The publisher didn't like the name, as I remember.
It was that, or it was either him or Daniel Abraham overruled him, because apparently it's Daniel Abraham that came up with most of the titles, and Dandelion Sky, I think, was one that Ty Frank had come up with, but it could have been the publisher.
Actually, it was the other way around. Ty Frank came up with the names of the first two books.
Okay.
And this third book, they had changed positions as far as who was going to name it, but it was the publisher itself that said, no, you've set up a theme so far of some sort of ancient name and an action or something, and they wanted to kind of keep that whole process going. Yeah,
I was misremembering. I do sometimes have faulty memory that I cause myself, so short-term memory problems and the like.
It is worth noting on this episode that the writer Georgia Lee, she previously wrote for the TV show The 100. Carnival Row. She was a producer on it.
Okay. I love that show.
And, I haven't watched season 2 yet.
She was also a staff writer for The Expanse on 19 episodes. Story editor, and possibly a couple other episodes. I don't really have the exact list of which episodes she may have written specifically for credit-wise, because
contributed to.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, is she the one who had worked in circuses?
That I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, they
I don't know.
Ty and that guy
but at one of her other credits, one of her other credits on here is Gangs in New York as additional staff.
Oh, interesting.
All right.
Going ways back.
Mm-hmm.
So what does everybody think of this episode?
Terrible.
Yeah, it is. I can't, I've been saying this is my least favorite season next to season 4. And that sounds like I don't like it, but I still love the show.
Yeah.
This episode's a good episode for season 3. I'm just, there's got to be a season, if you're going to have a best season for a show, there's got to be a season that's the worst. Just how things happen when you rank. And this is the second to worst. So, but it's still a great show. It's still a great season. And I think this episode's pretty good. Although it does make me really dislike Martians. Well, Martians that aren't named Alex, come on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
Bobby
when
Draper.
it comes to like chefs and food, I'm not really a big fan of the whole deconstructed thing, but for horror, I like the whole deconstructed thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben?
I thought I haven't watched all the seasons to be able to make a judgment, but quite often people say, "Oh, this is the weakest book in the series," but that book sets up things that happen later on. So the series wouldn't be there without that setup. I think Holden over the last couple of episodes has been showing this descent into wherever his mindset is, and like with there's a thing going on with, for me, and this comes into the Martians too. How does the proto-molecule interact? Is it predicted? Like, there's stuff with Miller there, and is Holden seeing what Holden expected to see? Did the Martians see what and experience what they expected to experience?
Well,
now that
there's a line. Miller has a couple of lines that they sort of take from the book about, imagine your brain is a keyboard with 100 trillion keys on it, and if you push the keys in the right way, your brain sees the guy as Miller, and I push the buttons this way and just see this. That's why only he sees Miller. Everything else is there.
Yeah, and the idea that Miller exceeds his protocols and then gets destroyed and recreated. That's because to conceptualize the protomolecule, Holden needs Miller. So does Miller exist outside of Holden's imagination, which is always the question. Like, it's a tension that's there.
I think he does.
And look, there's a beautiful thing because people think we see all around us, but we don't. Our minds just imagine it. And you can prove this by taking a picture card and moving it to the side of you and seeing when you can actually tell what card that is. Because your eyes, now our eyes move around a lot, but we're imagining most of what we're seeing. Now, that's an interesting concept, and I think I see that playing into where we're at the moment. I just wonder about it, and I wonder if that's going to play out later on in the series. But maybe I'm a bit too philosophical.
Well, thinking of that, our senses are picking up what we experience in our, space-time environment that we're in. And what Miller is doing is he is actually stepping out, not outside, but to the side of that and influencing Holden's brain, and which brings up the fact that Holden never saw him with the hat, yet he's seeing the vision of him with the hat because Miller wants him to see him that way. So it's Miller pushing all the buttons in Holden's brain to put him in that position. And it's even mentioned in the book that because he has to do this, if Holden's brain has to get preoccupied primarily with the presence of other people where, he has to focus, that's when Miller disappears. So I thought that was a very interesting concept that they brought out in the book. But I think, arguing with you about this, I believe our perceptions are what is the time-space reality that we exist in. I don't think there's any metaphysical mumbo jumbo going on.
And Mitch, please understand, I wasn't putting it as a position, more asking a question about it. But this is like the theory of reality. This is where cognitive science and that is just starting to go, is about that boundary between our external and our internal realities. Which I'm just a little bit interested in. I thought that this was kind of exploring some of that. Would another person going down into would they have seen the same thing that Holden did, or would it have been modified to them?
Other than Miller, I think they saw the exact same thing. Other than the presence of Miller, they saw everything but Miller.
Wow.
That interaction really interested me about this episode. I don't think any of the other episodes in the season have interested me in the way that this one did. So it's really good that I'm on this one. Although I did enjoy the rest of the season, but the conceptual stuff in this episode I found really fascinating.
Yeah. And I was going to bring it up later, but since we're covering it now, there was a beautiful quote from Miller as they're going down the tube from the surface to the interior of the station, where he basically says, calculus, amoeba, monkey, Mozart, or Mozart. He points to his head. I thought that was a brilliant bit, and it's from the books as well.
Yeah. And we even got monkeys and microwaves mentioned. That line gets dropped in this episode.
I was going to ask about that. Did he mention the microwaves and the monkeys?
Yep. You hear it over the radio. You hear Holden talking to Miller while Shang-Chi and Bobby are back on the drop ship after them, trying to talk to them on the radio. You hear Miller or Holden's side of the conversation with Miller says, monkeys and microwaves or what?
Yeah.
And it was just one of those lines to make Holden look crazy to the Marines. So,
it's got to be so frustrating. Of all the people to pick, they had to pick, the himbo Miller. Not Miller, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Holden,
yeah. Had a brain fart there.
But, really, all right, let's take a second. When actually has Holden been wrong?
But imagine if they picked Naomi.
They could have figured it out a lot.
Book could have been done like two books.
Yeah, the series would have been over. Because Naomi is the brains.
Naomi's the glue. I mean, if we're talking differences between the book and the show, obviously Naomi's absence from the Rossi has a deleterious effect upon Holden in the show.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Whereas in the books, it's not for that reason. It still happens, but it's not for that. So there's a interesting thing with Holden having there are times when we're going through Holden's mind, and he's suspect on his own mind. In the previous episode, he was running all these tests to see whether he was infected and things like that. So there's an element of distrust in his own state of mind that he has, which imparts itself to the reader. because you never get that sense of time in the show. And this was talked about in season 1. You never get that sense of time in the show that you do in the books. So everything
There was a
might have
mention in
happened
the
in
show.
a day.
There was a mention in the show. I think he said talking to Miller for a year. I think in the show.
Yeah.
Well, since the ring opened.
Yeah,
it's a timey-wimey thing.
Which
In the book, it's a year. It's in the book, it's a year. On the show, it's just been since the ring
I swear
opened.
he said like a year in the show. Like I swear I heard him say that in the show.
And I'll give you that.
It's in the book. You heard it on the audiobook.
Then the nature of filming it is that one event follows another, and it's not like they're going 3 weeks later or anything like that to give you that sense of time. But yeah,
I wish they would.
I think
I really
miss
that on shows.
better, but then I didn't make the show, and I don't want to say because I'm really enjoying the show.
Yeah. I am too. I love this show.
And a perfect example of the time fart aspect of things is in this episode, you have the call to prepare for the Thomas Prince to go through the ring. And the shot they have is the Thomas Prince in most of the ring. Well, it has to be so far away that at the speed at which they're approaching so that they don't go too fast once inside, it would take them weeks. So, you have that. There's all kinds of little, what I call boo-boos in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't write my boo-boo down.
Oh, you didn't write your mistakes?
That's something I forgot to write down. Where is it?
That happens. I didn't write much down for this episode at all. I've had a busy day and kind of got distracted and then realized, oh, wait, it's 7 o'clock. That means we're streaming in an hour and a half. Oops.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask in general. Did you find that this particular episode had a lot in it that was not in the book? Because there's only like 3 or 4 chapters in the book that even refer to this time frame that we've got in the episode. Yeah. So the episode is actually, going into our first subject here, what changes. The episode is unrelated.
Mostly new.
To the book.
It's entirely. Mostly new.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was reading
everything with the Marines.
When am I going to get to this bit? And it's just not there.
Yeah.
I mean, you get.
Yeah, we have discussed
half
in the last few
with
weeks.
The Marines.
Yeah, we've discussed in the last few weeks how the personnel and all that is completely bollocksed up.
Mm-hmm.
So
everybody's in the wrong places.
Yeah, I think at this point we can all pretty much agree that we don't need to say who did what and why it's not in the show at this particular moment, or do we want to cover some of that?
Well, if we do, we do.
I haven't been on while you guys have been discussing this, but like putting Naomi on Naboo, what is it? The
Behemoth.
Yeah. Great, because you needed something to make us give a rat's. Yeah, and good.
Yeah.
But I really like reading in the book about Ball and like those. So you miss that from the show. You can't. You get it. The like they're still marking it, but yeah, they've put Naomi in there instead of the characters in the book, and I kind of miss the characters from the book.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
me.
Bull is part of why I love this book so much.
I knew you were going to say Bull.
Yeah. This is my favorite season, or favorite book, I mean. My favorite book is Abaddon's Gate in the series, not in general, but in this series. And even though Bull's not on my list of like my favorite characters from the series, I think he's probably the best character in this book. Just through and through, his chapters really, really get to me. I really just,
Yeah.
Bull is just amazing. I'm glad that we got some version of Bull on the show. Although it's much later, it's still nice to see, have some of him, because he is such a great character. He's the guy who's trying to make things work, and they're giving it to everybody else. They're giving his stuff to everybody else, which is fine, because as much as I hate Ashford in the book, I love Ashford on the show. Yeah.
Ashford is that's adaptation, of course. You farm things out to different people. Yep. I mean, I read the prologue of this book and thought, that's not a prologue. Yeah, you get to chapter 8 and you've met the characters who are going to be, because the chapters are short in the book, but each one is named for the character whose POV it is.
Yep.
And by about chapter 8, you'd be going, yeah, RJ would consider that a prologue.
Yeah, but that's the guy who thinks 150 pages is a prologue. So I think that might be shorting it a bit there. What, a third of the book sometimes is prologue and epilogue.
Oh, Crossroads and Twilight, but that's beside the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are some, in there? I'm happy now. I can.
What are some changes that you liked or disliked, Max?
Thinking on that one, because I like the episode itself. Things change. It's like I had to go back and listen to the chapter, figure out what the hell was I even read that was in the book. So I had to go back. Like, I don't remember anything that was happening, and everything was so out of order. I'm trying to remember, when did this happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
there's even in the book, there's some things out of order.
Yeah. And finally getting like the correct order chapter on the chapters, like some of the stuff on the sphere in the middle was pretty close enough to what happened. Mm-hmm. Maybe the specifics of how it happened were slightly different, but didn't really matter. How it looked maybe changed a bit. It was good enough. I like how that happened. The whole Naomi thing is whatever. It's my main criticism in the whole series as a whole is like they're adding more tension where it may not have needed that tension, crew tension, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, so much of the tension is actually built up in the story, mm-hmm. in the books, in the internal monologues. And, as we all know, that's almost impossible to, bring across in a visual medium like this. Right. But that's where most of the tension exists. And adapting it the way they did to bring that more to the fore in mm-hmm. a visual medium, I think they did. I think they did about as good as you can do with the source material and the obvious changes that they made with the utilization of the characters.
Yeah,
there's one like I said, like I wish they hadn't done.
But I say it's more like with the original season. Like a main thing, like the tension between the crew, like they were constantly trying to get them at their throats in the first season.
Yeah,
that was something
early first season.
Yeah, that was something I didn't really care for. And there are tensions that they can definitely build up in crew, especially like on the Behemoth, for instance. Mm-hmm. And they did that wonderfully, I thought.
Yeah.
Especially between other factions. Like, that's what this whole season is going to be about.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing that fine.
There's all the factions.
Yeah.
They do say They do say that television without tension is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension that was already there. Yeah, it's Hallmark Channel. The one change that I wish they hadn't done, and I'm not saying they were wrong to do it, it's just I love the character of Bobby Draper, and I resent the fact that there's an episode where I hate every scene she's in. Or at least the side she's on. I hate what her side is doing in every scene she's in. I wish Bobby hadn't been included in the Marines in the slow zone. She's not in the book. You know,
Yeah.
I understand keeping your actor around. You know, they had her for as much as they needed first half of this season. You know, we're not using Ava Sarala, you know, if at all in any of these episodes. I think she's appeared twice since the second half of the season started. And both times on video, basically.
Yep.
It just I kind of wish they had left Bobby out of this, out of the slow zone.
Maggie.
Because I don't like watching, you know, that stuff with, you know, I'm just so mad at the Marines, especially the lieutenant, you know.
And if you think about it, other than the fact that she is able to establish contact with Holden, she has no real purpose. I mean, she has a great observation next episode, but she herself could be any Martian Marine. I agree. Yeah. But it's nice to see her as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is nice to see her. It's nice to see her and then hate the freaking scene. It's like that's not good, you know? It's like seeing your best friend just to have a fight with him. It's nice to see your best friend. You haven't seen him in a while, and then all you do is argue. You know, it's like that for me.
There was one scene with her though, where a Martian has been lifted up into the air by the protomolecule, and she's looking up, and her eyes are wide, and that's a beautiful shot. I should have brought that one up for archiving for us. But I mean, it's a beautiful shot. The only thing I hate is that immediately afterwards, her head moves in order to follow the body down from overhead. And it doesn't match the spatial environment that they're in. So it's kind of like, but it's the kind of thing. Yeah, it's the kind of thing you'd only see if you watched it 30 or 40 times.
Which, we've been doing. I think I only watched this episode this past week like 4 times. Usually it's 5 or 6. Any other changes anybody wants to bring up?
Yes. Go ahead.
It's just a small thing. So I really like in the book how Anna, she was the I don't know, Reverend Mother. Sorry, that's a different franchise. For 100 Russian Methodists on Europa. And that to me, I like that better than, she wrote speeches for a political, now I understand why and how they did that and the reasons for it and da-da-da. But I like book Anna better.
Okay. I like book Anna a lot. I'm just really fond of Elizabeth Mitchell as Anna.
Oh, no, absolutely. Because I read, when I read her, it's that act, no, she was
still picture
great.
her.
It was great what they did with her. So
book
they've
Anna is really good.
it, and I'm not even saying it's a bad change. I'm just saying I like book Anna.
She's a good character.
Yeah. And the main thing is the speech writing, obviously, the book does not have her do that.
No, but
that was
we meet
to work her in.
Doing that. So it's connected, but yeah.
Reading
I
the
think
book,
it was important.
Reading the book, I do look forward to seeing, because I can't remember in the show if the spoiler taser scene happens. Because she was in the book, she was fully willing to tase a guy.
Yeah.
With her taser.
I think that's why I like her.
Yeah. And in this version, I don't think she has a taser at all,
No.
or is
no.
even capable of using a taser, because she hasn't had any like thought that we were aware of using a taser.
I was going to bring
Just-
that up, that she's a peaceful woman.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of, using a gun is like foreign to her.
Mhm.
But she also responds so smoothly in the show, so smoothly to the euphemism of he was cleaning his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's obviously pastoral. And she tagged him as someone to keep an eye on, like, so it is really interesting. I really liked how the book dealt with her separating from her partner and child better than the show as well. But
The show
you've got
does it
more
well
time.
anyway.
You can explain more stuff. You can get inside their heads. It's completely different. So it's an unfair criticism. But if we're talking about changes, it's just a thing.
I think the show still does her distance from Nomi and Nono pretty well.
Yeah, but you have to remember in the book too, Nomi had basically told her it's okay to go, where here she's actually apologizing after the fact.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but
Which
also
is-
because she in the book is based on Europa and she's there with the kid, there's the whole thing, and it's a subtle thing, it's a little bit of world building, but the kid going back to live in Moscow with her grandparents will need to take meds and learn to hold her weight up in zero gravity, and so
full gravity.
it's more nuanced in the book. Well, surprise, you know.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Yeah.
But yeah, I as I read the book, I just notice how they've changed her character in the little things. So
I think they've done a really good job of adapting her to the medium, the character. And that starts with what they did at the first half of the season. I want to say last season because it feels like two separate seasons. But that the first half of the season, introducing her then, I think really worked well, and it sets her up to be here. Instead of it just in the book, she happened to be the available Methodist pastor that was on the way. Because they were picking people up on the way to the ring,
That brings up now, I'm a fan of the Wheel of Time, so it's normal for me to think about predetermination and predestination and such religious artifices. It's in this episode, I think, that Holden is asking himself, why does this keep happening to me? And there's an implied he's at the nexus, he's the determinant, he's the and also with Anna, it's this is her destiny. This is like, it's not too strong, but I'm getting elements of predestination and predetermination being played out.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well,
Anna is the right person for the job, and Holden is the right person for the job, and Randall Thor was the right person for the job. Not to overburden the point.
Yeah, and it's kind of pointed out in the show particularly because I think in the books it's Holden himself who questions, why am I always in the middle of something? And here in the show, you have Miller basically saying, well, why are you always in middle. There's got to be a reason. And they also, as you had brought up, Miller also gets rid of this concept of free will. Things are predetermined, if not predetermined, at least preordained to occur. The method by which
have that argument.
Yeah, the method by which it might occur could vary. So that would be the difference between preordained and premeditated here.
The Methodist method.
It's in the show where he says the line, when he accelerates, he's arguing with Miller, and then he starts accelerating faster. And he says, "I'm just exercising some free will."
Yep.
Well,
so speaking of
have that
destiny,
book.
Favorite scenes and dialogue from this episode?
I've got one that I want to bring up real quick. There's a line of dialogue, and it's from this great scene with Alex and Amos discussing the weird shit going on. And Amos is explaining he hasn't felt fear since he was 5, but his line that I really like is, "I get it, alien shit, magic gates, now we bugging off to go play Belter. Holden doing, I have no clue what Holden is doing." And like the other line he has in that same scene when he's talking about the friend who, if the end of the world ever came, she'd jump off the roof with her 2 cats. Amos, saying, like a fucking pharaoh, "Don't worry, I'll take you with me too."
Yeah.
It pats on the cheek, pats Alex on the cheek. It's like, that's brotherhood right there, coming from Amos at least.
Oh yeah.
I really like that scene, and that look right there. That's when he's saying, "I haven't felt fear since I was 5 years old." Alex is like, "I wish I could go through life like that." And Amos is like, "No, you don't." And that's that look right there.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out to Wes. His eyes tell his story so well. Absolutely phenomenal. And when he looks at Alex and says, "No, you don't," as someone who's been and seen, no, you don't wish that upon anyone. Yeah, it might have made you what you are, and you might, but you don't wish it upon anyone.
Yeah.
So, I thought he's a standout in every scene he's in. So what do you do?
I might go so far as to say Wes Chatham is the most valuable player on the show in general, all 6 seasons. I mean, it just so much hinges on him, Amos, being done right. I mean, I'm not saying he's the best actor. I just say in a lot of ways he holds the show together on how well. I mean, I don't know. That's not right what I want to see either. I don't know. I just think Wes Chatham is just phenomenal throughout.
He delivers the best one-liners.
Oft times,
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
Quite often.
He's both consistent and surprising.
What was your favorite scene there, Max?
It's kind of a toss-up. Like I almost want to say the disassembling was pretty great. But I'm going to go with that end scene of the episode.
Dandelion,
the one that when you first saw it, your skin, your hair and your skin just like stood up like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is some shit going down.
Yeah.
Like this might be some body horror shit going down, but this is something bigger than everything else in their entire
bigger than humanity.
Galaxy or solar system, rather.
Yeah. And it was actually the destruction of one of those that really hit home.
Yeah. Like, they could tear you apart at a molecular level, but they could do that.
Yeah.
And that's scarier.
Yeah. And actually stepping back to, what's changed from the book to the show, the representation that this is a part of as far as Holden's, experiences having inserted the key, closing the gap, whatever you want to call it. You compare the visuals there to what the descriptions that we had in the book of what he sees. Obviously, you can't portray that visually. I think they did a great job doing so. They came up short, but I still think they did a wonderful job presenting what it is that he experienced.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, they definitely mentioned like the internal screaming without sound, I think, in the book.
Yes.
And we kind of had that in the show.
Mm-hmm. Now, why in the world was he hanging there naked, though? What was
Because in the book he's naked. In the book he's naked.
Well,
Why is he naked?
He's floating in space naked.
Well, what's
Or
the
with no body. No body, I'm sorry.
what's the
Maybe
Da
that's to
Vinci
represent
painting?
that.
What's the Da Vinci painting on Sistine Chapel?
Oh, yeah.
or Michelangelo, you mean?
Oh, Michelangelo, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
You know what I meant.
The one with God touching man's finger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a pretty good callback to that.
Yeah. Might see that.
Yeah, and there's also fairness because only a few episodes ago we saw Naomi nude. You know, so to be fair to people, they decided to show Holden nude.
Oh, okay.
If it was, come in CG.
Body double?
Right.
Who knows?
Go ahead, Ben. Did you have something?
Well, and I don't think that the nudity's been gratuitous or anything like
No.
that. I think I mean, from the get-go, these are visceral people living real lives. They're just happening to do it in the outer reaches of the universe.
Yeah. Heck, we've had nudity on the show before, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
The first episode had nudity.
I was thinking that with the zero gravity stuff because, geez,
Yeah.
I want to go to space.
A lot of people do. Join the 20-mile Clyde Club. I had another scene. Well, it's actually two scenes, kind of, but I put them together because they're really the same. It's the stuff going on the Edward Prince's observation deck, as you know, both as they're getting ready to transit through the ring, and later when when Lieutenant Jordan comes along to summon Tilly. Just the excitement that Anna and what's his name, Kovor, Chris Owens' character, the scientist. I think you would.
Colvord, yes.
Kovor, you know, just them looking at, you know, the Clash of Titans arena, looking down at everybody, you know, everything, you know, because that reminds me of them standing around the Clash of, Clash of Titans, looking at the Earth, you know, with all the gods, and that's what that display reminds me of. But they're sitting there looking at the slow zone and trying to figure out what they're looking at. You know, and he wants to set up, you know, probes right away. We've got to get probes out as soon as possible. She's like, shouldn't we just enjoy this for a second? And he's like, yeah, I suppose we should. You know, and it just brings it back. Not knowing about things that happen, I'd have been, you know, after this, I'd have been one of those people there, you know, super excited to go through that ring. I'd have been standing there on the observation deck, you know, amazed at what they're seeing on the displays. It would be one of those two. You know, that would just be, I would be so just giddy being there myself.
Now, I've got three that we've not brought up yet.
Okay.
I think are probably going to be good for some discussion. I want to bring up, I think, probably the most sincere part of the entire episode. We're inside the station, And Holden has just really insulted Miller, and Miller disappears. And if you've watched the episode before, you expect the Martians to show up, but they cut away to something else, cut back to the station. And then you have Miller laying on the floor, propped up against the lock that has grown from floor and ceiling. And he talks about Julie. And and immediately before this, Holden was pushing him about Julie. And so here he is laying on the floor talking about Julie and their last minutes together. And he says that he told her, or she had told him the story about angels coming down when you die and taking you halfway to wherever you're going to go. And he said he told Julie, if you fall for me, it ain't going to be for halfway. That was, I think, the most tender, poignant moment in the entire episode.
And it doesn't hurt that they use the same music that they had playing during the scene with Miller and Julie when he finally found her, at the end of halfway through season 2, when they were just before, the episode that it crashed into, Eros crashed into Venus.
I
went back and I checked that episode because I'm like, wait, those strings sound familiar. I went back, played that other scene. I'm like, I was going back and forth between the two, and I'm like, yep, that's the same music.
What a great callback.
Same violent strings.
Oh, that's great.
And that's part of why it just emotionally hits home. Those strings, slow strings can get emotional, even when you're not noticing them there. Yeah, I had that written down for music.
Oh, okay. Another one was, it's a funny little moment when Tilly is telling, or right after the ceremony, she and Anna are walking out of the room, and Tilly says, I've found someone I think who doesn't want to be found. And Anna tells her, well, you should talk to her, use your best judgment. Tilly comes back with the line, you don't know me very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good judgment? I don't have good judgment.
Yeah, I think that is just, that's precious. It's just a quick little thing. So it isn't always Amos that gets the one-liners here.
No. Tilly has
they got the characterization right with Tilly, yes.
Yeah.
And then my last favorite scene is Ashford dressing down Diogo after he says, you should be captain. Yeah, Ashford comes out with like a 45-second dress down of Diogo, and it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me that did Diogo sound like a petulant 12-year-old during that scene?
Doesn't he always?
Yeah.
Correct.
Hope Jen doesn't watch this here to say that. She loves her.
I think she'd agree.
Diogo.
I think she'd agree.
Yeah, maybe. So
isn't he on Dora?
Where are we at, Max? I don't know.
Well, I wanted to follow
Chris Rotilio.
Okay, I wanted to follow up on that briefly because later when you have Ashford and Drummer down in the that bay that's got the probes in it, or the big machines, she and he are arguing, and she said something about the fact that I'm sure you somehow built me up after we had after I'd left, and which was a direct reference to his dressing down of Diogo, though she probably doesn't know that occurred, but she's assuming he would have done something like that. I thought that was a beautiful bit of, Drummer knowing her stuff.
And understanding Ashford.
Yeah.
Because and she does does understand Ashford. It's just, up until at this point, I still kind of really like this Ashford.
Here's the
It's
scene from earlier you're talking about.
yes. Janelle
I was digging.
Williams.
I thought we had it and couldn't find it.
That's funny. It almost looks like she has some sort of shirt on that is a display.
Yeah, it does. Just the way the display is vanished.
Easy to read. Funnily enough, like there's a couple of scenes, and some of them might be from the episode before, but just quickly, the drinking of the whiskey or whatever, when Ashford comes out with the whiskey and Drummer goes off with it, and Naomi, and then the scene where they declare their allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Ashford puts a block on the skiff and Drummer lets Naomi go.
Well, no, drummer locked it. Ashford told her to put locks on it, and so she did.
Okay. Yeah. Ashford told her to, yeah. But to me, there's some symmetry running through that's allowing Naomi to leave. But that might, they had the drink. They declared their allegiance to the APA forever. The choice was there to let her leave, and then the choice was made to leave. Some of it might have been I think the drink was a previous episode. Now that I think about it, but
it was an episode or two back.
But where are you
they
going
all
with this?
blended to each other after a while for me, though.
Yeah, but Ben, where do you want to go with this observation?
Well, I think Naomi has to get back to the Rocky. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the book, she hasn't even left. And so, having read the books, I was always a bit like, I understood why they put her on the Behemoth. I do understand that. I also get that another name for a Behemoth is a Leviathan, and it started with the Leviathan wakes, and here we have the Behemoth heading to it. There's lots of, like, we started off the discussion talking about why it's a Baden's Gate instead of Dandelion Sky. And I think thematically a Baden's Gate works much better with
Well, yeah. Especially if you know what Abaddon means. It means destruction or place of destruction.
Oh, I was just going to look that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is basically the gate of destruction, which, considering what happens at the end of this episode, makes a lot of sense. I just had a discussion with a friend the other day on what the titles of the series mean, of the books. They didn't realize that there was actually something behind the meaning. You know, they thought it was just randomly cool sounding things, like the author said, this sounds good, you know. But on my second read through the series, I was able to figure out exactly, well, mostly what each of the titles was referring to. And I don't want to go into spoilers, otherwise I would talk about it. I can tell you more later. If you want to know a specific title, I can tell you what it means, but we can talk about that at a later time. But they are pretty, you know, Abaddon's Gate is very aptly named, especially considering what's starting in, you know, just starts at the end of this episode after the Marines pull their stupid shit.
So right now, we've got 2-word titles: Leviathan Wakes, Caliban's War, Abaddon's Gate. Like they're
Cibola Burn.
They're a multiple syllable word followed by a short word. There's something dramatic about them. They've got punch. They've got and these things matter. But also, Leviathan Wakes is about the structures in society, and like there's a lot in the titles to do with what's actually in the books.
I mean, there's thematic, and then there's direct meanings of the titles.
Yeah,
that's definitely one of the thematic meanings of Leviathan Wakes, which I hadn't thought of until you pointed it out when we had you on for season 1.
Be right back.
Okay.
I'm fascinated by the science that it portrays and how well it portrays that and how well the show is portraying the science. We do have the rule of cool. I completely accept that. But there's more to it than just the science. There's Holden's descent. There's it's really fascinating how they're able to play these things out. And yet, even though they give you the title at the start, you don't realize what the titles mean until you've kind of finished more than the book. I'm enjoying reading it. I'm enjoying watching it. So the two things are kind of separate, but yeah, it's good.
And I enjoy hearing your thoughts on it. That's why I keep having you back for this. What's our next question, Max?
Cinematography and special effects.
And all that stuff.
Yep.
I already brought up the music, which is in this question. The music there in that scene with Holden and Miller talking about Julie was just amazing. The cinematography, I think, in some of the exterior shots inside the slow zone could have been better. I don't know if it's just me, but I didn't have a sense of depth. There's just too much. The walls, the inside of the bubble was just too energetic sometimes, that it looked like it was 10 feet the other side of Holden when Holden and Miller were floating, on their way to the station. But I do love that shot there at the end when all the rings open up.
Yeah.
All the ring gates open. That's just...
They were saving their budget for that shot. It definitely showed.
Boys, we might not get renewed.
Like, just like going by this shot here, like, quality of this image compared to this is two very different things.
Yeah.
This is not a high quality picture, and they're the same resolution.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot more detail in this one. Or attempt at detail.
Yeah. This is more a motion picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's one of the things we've seen, I want to say, more in this season and last, where when things were in motion, they lack detail. So when you try to take a picture of it, this had no detail because it was all in motion.
Motion blur.
Yep. And so when you really zoom in on it, details suck. It's low quality, but because it was in motion, it looked fairly decent.
You got to think it's saving a whole heap of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thankfully it was a very short scene. It looked cool, but then you really zoom in, like, oh, that's PS2 era graphics.
Oh, Max.
Hey, PS2 had some pretty good graphics if you know which ones you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I didn't say gameplay. I did not specify gameplay.
Okay. Fair point.
At the time, let me just tell you, it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I remember. It's just comparing it now.
Yep.
Oh, no, nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Right. Did you have anything in particular, Mitch, for cinematography, all the technical stuff?
Well, I have a few things. First of all, the station exterior, I don't know if it was a model or CGI. I thought it looked great. Now, one interesting thing is that in the books, the protomolecule is brown goo. Here we've got blue goo, and I'm so glad that they went with blue because brown would have looked horrible here. The station interior set, if you think about it, was very sparse. And I'm sure most of it was probably just, a set, fluorescent paint,
Green screens.
heavy, well, not even green screen. You could just do fluorescent paint and, heavy UV lighting, and that would take care of it.
It made me think of Tron.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
The one bit of CG that I really thought was nice was the station lock that was growing out of the ceiling and the floor to meet that Holden's hand was the key. That was a beautiful little bit. I mean, I think that's more impressive than the graphics that they used for, on the Thomas Prince for the that visual that
The
they have they're
display.
looking at. Yeah,
Clash of the Titans display.
Yeah, the Clash of the Titans display. It's far more impressive than that by a long shot. The other thing that was really, really nicely done as far as the CG goes was the disassembling of the lieutenant in the inside the station. That was beautifully done.
Max, you're muted.
Sorry, I just talked about that. That was the mentioned that like the details kind of sucked, but in motion it looked great.
Mm-hmm. And that's all that matters. I mean, you want to get across what occurred. The individual steps don't matter that much. I don't
Let's
think.
see. I know in CG they add motion blur to stuff. At least with the video editing software I've been using, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the animations I can do, it's got a checkbox to add motion blur and then how much motion blur. And that takes up a lot of rendering power and time. But it makes a still shot almost impossible to get a crisp, clear, clean still shot to look at something and get detail. Now, there's probably a still shot that they have in their what's the name of the production company? Alcon, Mitch?
Yeah, Alcon.
I'm sure Alcon probably could produce a version of that at 1080p resolution that actually looks a lot better.
Oh yeah, they'll just take a single frame render.
Yeah, but without any motion blur added. So, motion stuff that does mess stuff up. So it could be a part of the cause.
Oh yeah, because when you're doing it for TV, you don't need to individually render each frame at a high def.
Yeah,
you're rendering.
I can tell you this.
Yeah,
when I was young and silly, I used to do stop motion animations, and I had a character called Little Guy, and it was made up of just short pieces of dowel connected by copper wire. I just drill a little hole in the end of the dowel together, connect them together. A Velcro floor, so his foot had the hooks on it when you had the Velcro mat. And his first adventure was putting together a puzzle. It's one of those. It comes as a cube. It comes apart as like 5-6 different pieces, and they were just laying around. His job was to put it together. And a buddy of mine and I are doing this, and I'll get to the point of this shortly. But in the course of doing it, we forgot how to put the damn cube back together. And at one point, Little Guy had put a piece in the wrong place, picks up the next one, goes to put it in place, and it won't fit, sets it down, scratches his head, pulls the wrong piece off, puts the right piece on, and finishes it up. Now, the point I wanted to make is, since each one of these is a single frame, actually you take 2 frames at a time, but because they're distinct frames, when you watch it as a full animation, yes, it is. It's not clear. It's not. I mean, it's too clear is the problem. You don't get that blurring that you guys were talking about that you really need to make it look like what your eye would see, because your eye can only see so many times a second or discriminate something so many times a second, which is why we do 24 frames a second in film, so that we can show it more often than your eye can update, and therefore your eye is going to smooth it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was for the movie, I want to say Dragon Slayer, that early 1980s movie. Starred the guy who the guy who started it ended up being playing Fish on Ally McBeal. But I think it was for Dragon Slayer that they went a step beyond stop motion. You know, they had it rigged so that as the frames were the one or two frames were being taken, there'd be a little bit of a motion, so that there was actually motion causing a blur. So each frame, instead of just being a stop here and then a stop here, it's, each frame and putting them together, there's a little bit of motion going there. And, as you play it back, it smooths out. But I think they went on to use that technology that they called it Go Motion. I remember watching on
Okay. Right.
Lights, Camera, Action, a show Leonard Nimoy used to narrate, about movie making. They called it Go Motion. And I think they took that. I think it was ILM who did Dragon Slayer. And then they used that for the AT-ATs in Empire Strikes Back. So that it's not just one frame at a time. Each frame, they film a slight bit of motion, just this microscopic motion in each frame. It might have just been Dragon Slayer that used it. That might have been after Empire, but I think they used it in Empire too. But I always remember when I see the thing about motion blur and think about animation and all that always that Go Motion that they had back in the early 80s always comes to mind. Late 70s, early 80s. Totally outdated now, but anybody else have anything more on the technical aspects?
I did not pay that much attention to the sound this time as I have in the past, and thank you for bringing up the callback. Music. Yeah, I'm going to have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, it's some beautiful strings there, and I really enjoy it. Move on. Next one, Max. You're Max. You're muted.
Okay. Favorite actors.
Favorite actors. Start with you, Ben. Who would you give a shout out, call out to on this episode?
Well, I'll say Holden. Now, it's not so much. I think he's just done a fantastic job of falling down the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a picture for that. So you can find it.
Like his eyes look haggard, his skin looks shallow.
Falling in the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a hole for him.
But this goes back to the whole, like, in part, it's the predetermination thing. But on the other hand, it's a God complex stuff, or whatever you want to call it. There's different names for it. But is Holden destined to be the one that interacts with the Praetor molecule? And if so, why so?
Read and find out.
These are bigger questions than I'm ever going to get answered now. But we've seen Holden go from this righteously indignant person become a rebel, and now he's just human and a flawed one at that, and he doesn't know the depths of what he's getting into, but he believes he's the right person to do it. And that's either very comforting or very scary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How about you, Max?
I mean, do we have to guess Amos?
Just wanted to
I
make
didn't
sure.
say Amos because I didn't want to take your thunder, Max. Yep.
But also Miller for just torturing Holden.
Yes.
So you're liking Miller's stuff, and he's not suffering.
Well, no, because he's making Holden suffer.
Oh, so that's better than Miller suffering.
It's
I can't argue with you on that. I
it's
can't.
related. It's related.
I
Holden's
like
suffering
suffering
is almost
Holden.
as
Sorry, I
Miller
like
causing others to suffer is similar.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Holden's suffering is better than insufferable Holden.
Exactly.
Ooh, there you go.
Oh,
Exactly.
Like that.
Because it's like they're merging their personalities a little bit.
but and the thing that's most insufferable about insufferable Holden is he's usually right, which makes him so insufferable.
Instead of us
Exactly.
suffering,
You know?
he's suffering. So
Mitch, how about you? Who's your favorite?
I mean, I like to go to this guy only because he does such a great job of portraying the character. Andrew Rotillo playing Diogo.
Yeah.
Diogo is such a beautifully developed character. This guy just plays him perfectly. I'm sure a lot of others could have as well, but this guy he really does nail this character. The obnoxious, cocksure little punk, and
Pestilent.
he's just grand. He's just grand. I think the casting for this kid and the role he plays is absolutely perfect. And then I'm going to give a shout out to Tilly, Janelle Williams.
Yes. She's pretty good. Do we have a picture of Janelle? Yeah, we had one up.
Second.
Oh, you're looking for that?
Remember with the stuff on her chest.
Yeah, with her robot chest.
I'm gonna have to agree on Stephen Strait as Holden. I don't often give him shout outs, Stephen Strait, the shout outs for actor. The last couple episodes though, he's been up there, or at least within the consideration for me. In my second place, since I always do 3, I don't know why, I just like 3. David Strathairn as Ashford. It's just he's killing it. It's not the same Ashford as the books, but it's a hell of a character. And apparently Strathairn had a lot of fun playing this role. He asked if he could come back. And that's why they continue Ashford in later seasons.
Oh, okay.
Because he asked if he had so much fun. He says, "Hey, can you continue to use me?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Can't argue with that. You know, you got David Strathairn wanting to stay on your show. You'd say yes." But for me, it's all about the investigator. Thomas Jane as Investigator Miller. You know, this version of Miller, and you know, the wardrobe department just knocks it out of the park, and the lighting and cinematography on all the shots of Miller since he showed back up an episode or 2 ago, the shots of Miller are just pieces of art. You know, they are cinematic art at its finest on this show. And part of it's just that look Thomas Jane has when he's in that wardrobe and that hat. You know, Pork Pie Hat and him just get along really well. And they just, and he just knocks it out of the park as the investigator. I like this version of Miller more than Miller when he was alive. And
Max,
I like Miller.
Max, do you have the name of the cinematographer handy?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
IMDb would be quicker than
Now,
Wikipedia.
Do they use the same cinematographer throughout the season? Do they
Ray
switch them up?
Dumas?
Ray Dumas?
Yep.
Oh, okay. His great grandfather wrote some books that we might have read.
Great grandfather. I actually just finished the Count of Monte Cristo yesterday. No joke. I just finished it yesterday. Wow, I really want this channel to have a conversation about that book and the adaptations for it sometime next year.
Yeah.
See how our next project goes.
Hey, I'll join you on that one if you like.
Yeah. We're taking an experiment. We're stepping outside of science fiction and fantasy and doing something very different after we finish the season of The Expanse. And well, a few weeks after we finish The Expanse, we've got Dune coming up as well to talk about, but we've got something else in the works for that. So, yeah, so I've got Stephen Strait, David Strait there, and then Thomas Jane this episode.
Okay, now you had brought up Holden initially, and you normally don't. But do you feel that he portrays the character when the character is under duress better than he does when the character is just carrying on?
I think most competent to good actors do. When you've got more to work with for your character, more emotion that you have to work with, more, more going on. I think that gives you more to work with, more to do as an actor, and makes you stand out more. Most of the time, there really isn't that much to Holden, at least not with Holden. Most of the time, I don't think, and I'm not a professional actor, so actors might disagree. I don't think Holden's that tough of a job, a role to play, compared to some of the other roles. That's why he doesn't, I pick my stuff on not just how it makes me feel watching their performance, but also judging it on difficulty level. So, kind of like an Olympic gymnastics judge, there's a difficulty level multiplier going on, or is it diving that uses difficulties, whatever,
Right.
So, yeah, there really isn't much to work with Holden most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't think. But there has been a lot more, but everybody's going through more.
I think he showed flashes of this in season 1 when the Canterbury dissipated. So we do know that I don't know, in Australia it's called the black dog. Yeah, depression.
Oh,
okay.
You call it the black dog?
Yeah, the black dog.
All right.
Holden sees the black dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I won't deny
that. So while his character is not that, when he gets into that, and I think they cast him with that in mind, I'm assuming. But yeah, I think he's growing with the role. And this season, he just looks so haggard. He doesn't have Naomi in the show. And I know he's going through it in the books, but in the books, he can talk to Naomi at least obliquely about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he does. Yes, and he does.
Yeah, because I think in the book, everybody knows about Miller at this point.
But,
or at least everybody
no
on the
one
roster.
mentions it. No one says you're crazy, boss.
Right. But.
Well, is he crazy? Is Miller real?
Well, Miller is real crazy now.
Max, put that last comment that came up on the screen.
I already did.
The one after that. So that the guys here can see it. So, yeah, we want everybody at home to be able to see Max. Max corrected himself after being caught by Norman Garden. Thank you, Norm. Always appreciate you joining us. Checking this.
Norman Garden, he's the best. A good fellow. Good fellow all around.
And a much better punster than me.
Well,
I'm actually kind of jealous at the pun skills that man has.
yeah, but there are oak trees that are better than you at puns.
Ouch! Wow.
Yeah, he laid it
Seepers.
down.
Are you saying my puns are wooden? I'm better at wordplay, other forms of wordplay than so much specifically puns, but yeah, I do love wordplays. Puns are highest form of comedy, in my opinion. Well, I think that brings us to our last question, Max, right?
Yep.
That would
Themes.
be theme. I only really picked up on one theme. I just had a hard time getting away from it, and I normally let everybody else go first. I'm just going to get my one out there, and that's reacting poorly to fear of the unknown. Everybody is reacting poorly to what they're afraid of and the things that they don't know. And one particular Marine named Lieutenant, we don't know a name, at least I don't know a name. I think he's just called Lieutenant. He causes a whole lot of misery because his first thought, oh, something scary, let's throw a grenade at it. And that's just reacting poorly, Holden has been right, especially on the show. Holden has been right consistently since the beginning of the show and has saved everybody's asses. So why they would all of a sudden believe this bullshit, because it doesn't fit with Holden's MO. Bobby points that out. Why they would all believe the worst, and even in the book, they believe the worst of Holden when Holden has consistently saved everybody's ass. He's not my favorite character in the books, but he's probably, or the show, but he's probably the one I'll defend the most because Holden has not been wrong yet about anything important.
How long would it take them to work out that it was a deep fake?
Probably not long because that video looks like they did some graphic layering on it to make, because that video that they use on the show doesn't look that realistic. It looks got some uncanny valley.
In the books, we know where its genesis is and things like that. So it wasn't meant to fool people for long.
No. But the fact that they're still believing the worst, and especially in the book, oh my goodness, the Marines don't do anything but immediately open fire on Holden in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. They don't even tell him, stop what you're doing. They just walk in.
Isn't the
don't even get
motto in the book, don't think?
No.
Follow orders.
Yeah.
That gets you into trouble.
Thing about propaganda.
Yeah, that gets people into trouble. Following orders got people hung at Nuremberg. So, following orders is not an excuse. One thing you're taught is, don't follow illegal orders. And, actually think, and then there's a lieutenant here who's actually supposed to be the one thinking things through. And on the show, he's the one that kills everybody.
He's the one that
because his first reaction is firing a damn grenade. Yeah. It's just.
But you also have this Martian society that's like literally a propaganda machine.
Not a propaganda machine; they're a terraforming machine.
But they're also a propaganda machine of straight military life.
Yeah, and I'm mad at Bobby in this episode too, because Bobby was the first one to fire.
I mean, look
so I'm mad at her too.
What's his name's son? He wants to go straight into the military.
Yeah, Alex's son.
Alex's son.
Yeah. I mean, their whole society is a propaganda machine to get everybody into the service and back and forth.
It's certainly militaristic, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there's a famous Australian football coach. 3 generations of this family have played football, and the grandfather is famous for saying in 1948 or something, "Don't think, do something," because his team was losing at halftime in the grand final. That was his halftime speech. And I
Soccer
just
or
think the
Australian
Martians have that mentality.
Mhm.
If you don't know what to do, shoot it. If you don't know what's going on, blow it up. And that's just
I definitely
only
get Starship
time-
Trooper vibes from these Martians.
The one
It's both
time
their
in this
society
book,
and their Marines.
shout out
the one
Starship
time
Troopers.
firing on Holden was the right call for the people who made that call was when the Behemoth fires on the Rossi. They had no choice. Bull in the book and Ashford on the show are 100% right. They were put into a corner. The only action they could possibly take was to fire on the Rossi. But everybody else was just not thinking, not using their brains, thinking about this. Wait, this guy just did all that, and then he's going to turn around and do this? That doesn't sound right. That's like Jerry Lewis shot somebody. Jerry Lewis would never have shot anybody. But if somebody did a deep fake video of Jerry Lewis shooting somebody, people reacting to that would have just been stupid because obviously, think about it. Jerry Lewis would never have shot anybody. And I just picked the name of somebody harmless. At least that was always harmless, seemed harmless. So that might be a bad example. If there's something he did I didn't know about.
Just replace the Marines with cops, and Holden has a cell phone in his hand, and it all makes sense.
Do you
Or
think this is the first deep fake ever?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they should have picked it up straight away.
Well, and it's interesting too because the captain of the one ship that recovered her crew after they had been on the Rossi and the one had talked to what's his face.
Yep.
The first thing she did was question the validity of the data on that he was presenting her to present further on. That's the first thing she did.
And they weren't
made a
interested.
good call.
Yeah.
The other Marines weren't interested if it was fake or not.
No.
Yeah, it just
The
orders that were
They were basically already out for blood before they even got landed.
Yep. No, good point.
Their pay grade and indictment. I don't know. Even in the book, it seemed like odd that people were like. I get what she's. Yeah, spoilers. I haven't read the book, but
go ahead, spoil it.
Julie's sister is far more complex in the book. It's all to do with her dad. She going into her dad being in prison and how her room is smaller than a dad's prison cell. She's like, this is part of who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. She's done a deep fake and no one's questioned it or picked it up or traced it to where it was broadcast from
Well, it was broadcast from the Rossi.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but it was sent there to be broadcast from there.
It was on. It might have been directly sent to the communication device that she had Cohen install. But either that or it was already on the device. But they can't necessarily.
You had it ready.
You can't detect. It was probably a tight beam, a laser tight beam, which they've used throughout. So you can't detect somebody else's tight beam unless you get right in between. So I could be sending a tight beam to somebody, and unless you are immediately between me and them, you're never going to know that I'm talking with them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like I almost had to suspend disbelief to think that everybody was buying it. Okay. But it's the same in the book. So that's not a change for the show. I think it's a flaw in obviously they wanted Holden to be in that position, yada, yada. But
it's all about stupid actions out of fear of the unknown and things you don't understand. And that's something we see all over the place in the real world too. So It's a relevant theme. But I hope that wasn't the one you picked up on, Mitch.
No, I picked up on one actually, and I will. I'll fess up here. I'd like to, check out Ty and this guy
I didn't listen this week.
for the shows that we do, and it was kind of late in the whole episode when they brought something up and brought up one example, and then I started thinking about it, and there's multiple examples. The theme is selfishness, and we have Anna, who is so interested and so focused on going through the ring. She's being selfish, and she ignores Jordan. Okay. Actually, she doesn't ignore him. She actually blows him off. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, please, and then walks away. It's like, whoa.
Selfishness. Melba's obsession with, embarrassing and eventually killing Holden. Yep. That is just being pure and simply selfish. And
she's also completely lost her mind.
Yeah. And I think we have a warning that we can put up.
Next.
Okay.
The ultimate selfishness. We have a character in this episode who takes his own life. Mm-hmm. And this is the point that was actually brought up on Ty in the Sky. And I don't think they expressed it quite the way I'm going to, but it is a very selfish thing to do, to take your own life. You're taking the easy way out. And selfishness is oftentimes expressed as just being the easy way to do something. Yeah. Now, there's obvious reasons why someone would want to do this. A very, very old friend of mine actually killed himself, and I did not find out. He did this in 1980, and I didn't find out till 2014, my 40th high school reunion, when I met his wife back then. They had a child who had spinal meningitis, born with it. They were both very heavy drug users at the time. From what she told, and it was like 3 or 4 months after. I hate myself. I can't remember his name. I even wrote a poem about him. But 3 or 4 months after he was born, my buddy Bob disappeared. I never heard from him ever again. And so it was like 30, or it was almost 40 years later that I discovered that he had shot himself 6 or probably 5 years after I had last seen him. He felt so bad about, the circumstances. Killing yourself, I'll say the word suicide, it's a very selfish thing to do. It's a quick fix to a problem that may or may not really exist. And anyone who does it, it's a shame that they did. And if anyone's watching this and they think that it's a solution, it isn't. It really isn't. There's other solutions out there, and many of them that are going to be far more rewarding, not only for you, but for anyone who cares for you. So it is, I was very surprised in this show that, number one, that they addressed the issue. Number two, that it passed muster with the powers that be, because actually, not really. Well, this is America. I mean, violence is fine.
See, yeah.
Yeah, violence is fine. Sex, taboo. Violence, yes. Love, no. I mean,
Death, yes. Creation
I
of
don't-
life, no.
Yeah. We got Cocoa Puffs up here, okay?
I do believe that in America, firearms are used to kill yourself more often than they're used to kill other people.
I think that's a stat I've seen before. It does
Um,
sound familiar.
Yeah.
If it isn't true, it's very close. I don't know the
Yeah.
exact, but yes, I know it's horrendous. It's horrendous.
Look, and just on that, there's so Australian men, especially in country outback areas, it's a lot of hassle to see a doctor. Like you might need to drive 400 kilometers,
Hmm.
like that type of thing. It's a lot of isolation, and farm work in particular changed with the big harvesters. So you didn't have farm hands around and things like that. And there was a spate where 50-year-old men were the most likely suicides in Australia.
Hmm.
And it was all in the outback regions. And it's such a blight. And then there's suicides in the Aboriginal community, which can be devastating and have a cascade effect. And I started something called it was called Midwest Ribbon for Life. It's now called Ribbon for Life. It's a nationwide scheme, and basically any person that's seeking to kill themselves is not in a healthy state of mind.
Right.
Now, you could exclude voluntary euthanasia for terminal patients and things like that from that diagnosis, but it is underrepresented for a reason, and that's because it gives people stupid ideas. So in Australia, we do not report on suicides in the paper, ever.
Oh, interesting.
Ever.
Did not know that.
It's not really emphasized here, but I think under certain circumstances, they may bring it up. But I don't think it's emphasized here by any stretch either.
You guys have things like suicide by cop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not quite going to be reported in the same way, perhaps. But they found that every time suicide was reported in the mainstream press, suicides increased in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
So they decided to stop doing it. You should try that with gun shootings. Just saying.
Yeah, right.
My big issue, one of my issues, it's not my big issue with the whole thing with Jordan. I don't understand his motivation. Why, I've been in a suicidal state of mind many times with my bipolar disorder. I understand feeling that way. Obviously, I've never gone through with it, but I can often understand people's motivations, at least in fiction, at least puzzle out their motivation. Jordan's motivation, I just don't understand it at all.
We just don't get any perspective on it.
Yeah.
And he's terrified. He's frightened. So what's the biggest fear most people have?
He's frightened of going through this, correct?
He's frightened of being in there.
Yeah.
He's in there already. And he was looking at a video display of the station when the thought occurred to him he could do that. And you can see that moment on the actor's face where the idea comes to him, and that's when he reaches down and grabs out his sidearm. I don't understand why. He was afraid. Okay. Afraid of what?
Was that before or after the probe went through the bubble?
Well, okay.
This is right after his ship went through.
No, I'm saying before or after the probe went through the bubble.
It was after, because that was last week.
Yeah.
The probe was last week.
Now,
when it went through the bubble and disappeared from existence?
Yeah, but see, the only ones in there to see that were the Martians and the Aussie.
Yeah.
Nobody else saw that.
Okay.
And we have no reason to believe the Martians, behaving the way they have been so far, would have bothered telling anybody, oh, yeah, don't touch the outer bubble.
Yeah.
But
What
Jordan was.
what prompted Jordan was the fact that he saw the conversation between Anna and Calvord or whatever his name is.
Right.
And Calvord had said something along the lines of a place where angels wouldn't tread, or
Should
something
fear to tread.
along those lines.
Right.
And that was there was the reaction shot that we had of the actor at that point that indicated that was what tripped him. That was the point where he thought, okay, this is it. And when he got to his room, he brings up the image that, they're all seeing inside. But if you go back and watch it, you'll see that is the point where the whole process was tripped and began.
It just up until the moment he takes his life, it's playing like he's scared of dying. So what does he do? He makes sure he dies. No,
on his own terms.
Yeah.
Now, there's so they're in the future. I find it interesting that there's a small Methodist sect in the books, because my grandmother was a Methodist lay preacher. I know all about the Methodists. They became the Uniting Church, and but I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition. Obviously, the guy with the collar is Catholic. It's never explicitly said,
Or
but he's
Episcopalian.
obviously Catholic. In the books, it is, yeah. But
they moved them around,
and it comes back to the Protestant Catholic difference between predetermination and predestination. And I assume Jordan was on the Catholic side.
No, he was Methodist. That's why he approached Anna to begin with.
But that's what I so.
Oh, taking the Catholic side of that argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in his crisis of faith or whatever, this is beyond humans, or it kind of didn't make sense, but it did. It was, I think, was supposed to show the panic and uncertainty permeating the entire crew of all of these ships. So I think it was meant as a wider metaphor, and therefore doesn't exactly make sense for that particular character, as it's more an expression of all of the uncertainty that everyone would be going through coming up to this momentous thing.
It could be. It's just I've been puzzling over his reaction this whole time. Every time I've watched the episode, and I keep getting that character confused. I keep thinking that the character they have as Jordan is Chris from the books. But we don't get any of the other of her Methodists except at Jordan's funeral, memorial service. So.
Actually, I believe they are the same character. They've just taken the character further in the
and changed the name.
Yeah.
Max, did you have any themes you picked up on that we haven't addressed?
Been trying to think of one, but at this point in time, not really.
Okay, how about you, Ben? Did you have any others?
I've pretty much touched on most of them. Hang on one sec. I'll bring up
your notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
so I like that.
Everything I have. Let me double check my notes. That's all I have.
There's a quote by Anna that says, "I'm here to talk to people, to listen to people when they are grieving."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what she was confessing to Tilly when when she realized that she fell short of Jordan's needs when he needed them.
Well, there's a contradiction in her statement, which is, "I'm here to talk to people. I have to listen." I mean, this is you guys might never have heard this, but this is something that we say is particularly in Outback. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion.
I have been trying to practice that. I have. It's hard, but you guys will notice I do talk a lot less than I used to talk on these shows.
Yeah,
I sit
when
back
I
and
was
listen
young,
as much as I can.
Well, that's because
when
I
I was
talk
young
too
and
much.
would yabber on, the old bloke would just look at me and say, 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Oop.
Shit.
Anybody got any other notes they want to bring up? All right. I
I'm good.
think that's a wrap for tonight's episode. Thank you guys at home for watching. Thank you guys, Ben, Mitch, Max. Thank you guys for doing the show with me. Thank you
Always happy.
again. Thank you guys at home for watching. Please leave us a like, a comment, and give us a subscribe, please. We could use some more subscribers. Thanks for watching. Come back next week as we discuss episode 311.
Fallen World.
Max, you got it. Fallen World. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.
Hi.